AI token costs are absolutely out of control, guys. We have a story coming from Axios that there's an enterprise company that spent $500 million on AI tokens in 1 month on accident. Guys, $500 million on AI tokens on accident. And today we're gonna cover that story. I'm also gonna give you 5 different ways that you can save money on AI tokens. These are tried, true strategies. And yeah, if you stick around to the end, I'll even give you one bonus strategy for saving tokens that I don't think many people are talking about. Anyway, let's get into the story today. So again, this is just absolutely insane. This company, which is anonymous, more on that in a moment, was revealed to Axios by an AI consultant. The AI consultant said that this company spent $500 million on Claude in 1 month, which is just an astronomical amount because, you know, when we look at what these companies are doing, they're telling all their employees, everybody use AI, use our AI systems, use Claude, write code, just go nuts. And at the same time, they're firing people that don't use it, and they are freezing hiring for new employees. And the idea here is that AI is just gonna be much more efficient than humans. And in some cases, I think it is, and I think it will get better over time. And of course, we know that because it's so new and a lot of people are just trying to figure it out. I mean, guys, we're like in the pregame. The game hasn't even started yet. And anyway, it's causing a mess. Huge problems for teams. And I think is what's interesting here, again, the company is anonymous and it was revealed to Axios by an anonymous AI consultant. So, you know, there could be some gamesmanship going on here. Is the AI consultant just releasing this to say, hey guys, don't, you know, your enterprise is gonna waste a ton of money unless you hire our AI consulting firm to help you through it? Like there certainly could be some gamesmanship, but I mean, this is not an isolated incident. We've started to cover this. We've started to see this manifest. In fact, we covered this in a video last week. I'll post a link to the video that we covered just a few days ago where AI tokens are becoming an issue and this new term tokenmaxxing is coming out. No, that's not a clavicular term where you like you hit yourself in the face with a hammer to make yourself look better. No, it just means we get more usage out of our tokens. Smash like if you understand what I'm talking about and talk about clavicular. But just a quick side note, I really feel like we've entered the brain rot part of the internet where people are just becoming more and more retarded by the day. I don't know if we're supposed to or allowed to use that word anymore. I don't know. I don't care. I just see people doing like incredibly stupid stuff on the internet. So anyway, if you're a dad like me, we'll pray for each other, okay? Anyway, again, this is not an isolated incident, okay? Because there's other companies that are starting to face this problem. Microsoft recently significantly reduced the internal Claude code usage because of the cost. And Uber ran through its entire annual token budget in just 3 months. Google announced that they now have AI writing 75% of their code. And just a quick speculative side note here, when I think about companies that are large enough to spend $500 million on AI in a month, Google is kind of high at the top of the list. You know, again, if you have a suggestion or if you think it might be another company, type your comments below. But if I had to guess which company it was that just completely blew through their budget, Google is my guess. Anyway, we're in an interesting situation here because as expected, as we talked about, AI is not just a solution to all of our problems. It's actually creating its own new problems, which again is an opportunity for humans like you and me to adapt, evolve, and find new opportunities to be relevant, respected, and financially free in this new world. The reality is that there's a lot of companies that are implementing AI and they have no idea what they're doing. And to have someone that can come in and help implement tools and structure is going to be huge, especially when it comes to helping them maximize their return on investment and help them avoid just completely obliterating the budget. And again, this is where that term tokenmaxxing comes into play. How do we get the most value for our tokens? And that's what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to cover 5 different mistakes that are probably costing you, your company, your team money when it comes to using AI. And if you implement these tools, some of these tactics, the bottom line is you're going to save a lot of money on tokens. Okay, so let's get into it. And I'm going to these tips are actually applicable to just about every LLM. Claude is the big one, especially in enterprise, and that's the tool that I use the most. And so, I'm gonna anyway, let's get into it. So the first thing that you need to understand is you gotta use the right tool for the job. Gemini is better at some things. Claude is better at writing code. I like OpenAI for generating images. There's tons and tons of AI. So first off, make sure you're using the right tool for the job, okay? And that kind of changes from time to time, and I'm kind of building out a system to better assist with what tools I'm using for which jobs. But anyway, in any event, use the right tool for the job. And then furthermore, just to kind of double click on that idea, you want to make sure that you're using the right model. You don't want to use the frontier model, the newest model, for every single task. So for example, you probably don't want to use Claude Opus or ChatGPT 5 to summarize like a 2-sentence email. Okay, you want to use the frontier models when it's a big task. It's a complicated task. It requires more technical jargon, right? So, if it's a very menial or quick or a small task, you really don't want to use the frontier model. So for Claude, for example, if I'm just saying, hey, can you rewrite this email, or can you create a blog, or can you do something like that? I'd say, hey, just use Sonnet for this. And again, you could use ChatGPT 4. Just be thoughtful about the model that you're using. And again, if you have a team, you want to monitor how many tokens each team member is using as well. If you see that some team members are using far more tokens, you want to get on top of that sooner rather than later. So again, if you're rolling out token usage, AI usage to a new team member or someone who hasn't used it before, obviously having SOPs in place that have maybe been created from some of your other more advanced users is good. But just make sure that they kind of know some of these tips, right? Like, don't use Opus 4.8, the brand new model that's very expensive and very token heavy, to just like respond to emails. You don't want to do that. The second problem that's costing you money when it comes to tokens is giving massive context windows when it's not necessary. And we've talked about this a lot on the channel, guys. The context that we give our AI tools matters a lot. You don't want to, garbage in, garbage out kind of deal. The problem though is that in some cases you're maybe giving the LLM way too much context that isn't completely necessary. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you were to upload a 500-page contract into Claude, when you really only need it to review a couple pages of the contract, okay? And again, this can manifest across tons of different things. Another problem you can run into when you're setting up Claude is by telling Claude, ChatGPT also, but telling Claude to review lots of text files or lots of skills files before it starts each project. And this is kind of like an instructions you can set up in the settings. If you're saying, hey, before you start each job or each chat, make sure that you review all the skills files. Well, over time, if your skills files get more and more and more bloated, you're just burning through tokens, context tokens, that quite frankly is probably not even relevant. So again, what you want to do is think about what are all the tasks that we're using AI for, and what are the correct standard operating procedures for that? What's the right model that we should be using? What's the right software we should be using? What are the appropriate skills for that particular task? Because again, over time, and especially if you're on an enterprise plan, those skills files and whatnot, those skills files can start to get very, very bloated. Don't let the context bloat kill your budget. All right, next thing here, agent loops. So anytime you're running an AI automation or an AI agent, it needs to be very, very closely monitored, because AI agents can just sometimes go on loops that never end, and they just keep burning tokens over and over and over and over. And you don't want that, I don't want that, your clients don't want that, nobody wants that. And again, I'll give you an example here. Like, let's say you set up an AI coding agent that reads a repository, it writes code, it tests the code, it debugs the code, and then it repeats that task 25 times. That might be overkill. So anytime you're setting up a new AI agent or automation, you need to check it closely. And I have a bunch of friends who are using tools like OpenClaw, and they've run into this problem, burning through thousands and thousands of dollars on tasks because the AI agent just doesn't know when to stop. It keeps burning. You just upload your credit card to the LLM, and it's a big problem. And quite frankly, I think this is probably the #1 problem that big enterprises are running into. You've got too many people using too many agents to perform too many tasks without actually having any sort of ROI measurement in place. That'll kill you, okay? Another way that you can, that's probably costing you money, is by using AI note takers when they're maybe not necessary, you know. And by the way, as a side note, I will not hop on a Zoom call these days without having a note taker in there with me because it's so effective. Transcriptions, summaries, following next steps, follow-up. I can even send that information into my CRM so that if I'm working with a customer this week, but another rep is working with the customer the following week, it's just a beautiful thing. But you know, you might not necessarily need a Fathom note taker or a note taker in every single call. Does that make sense? You know, use it where you need it. Does every single person on your team need to have an AI note taker on every single call? Something to think about. And by the way, if you've never used a note taker before, you definitely should. Fathom is by far my favorite. It's excellent, it's not too expensive, and I'll post a special link below so you can try it out for free. If your team uses Zoom, you need to have an AI note taker, you need to have a strategy in place, and if you try Fathom, that's what I do. Another mistake that's probably costing you money is using AI to research everything. Researching everything, workflows, and not having the proper workflows and prompts in place. You know, AI is very powerful at researching. Again, you might not need to use the frontier model, but just telling AI, like, especially on autopilot, to go and just do deep research. And some of these tools are very expensive when it comes to deep research, and in some cases you need to do research. If you're in the legal field, for example, you're looking for case law. If you're in medical, you might need deep research. But if you're looking, you know, for like marketing resources, you might not need to go as deep, at least not for every single project. You know, maybe if you're onboarding a new client, you need to do deeper research. But the point here is that, like, whenever you've got that buffering, kind of rotating arrow on your screen, that is burning tokens, and you need to be wary of that. You know, be specific. Run research for qualified opportunities, but don't just run expensive AI LLM research when it's not necessary, especially against very large data sets, spreadsheets, like we showed the example of contracts before. Now, the bonus tip here, and this is kind of relevant if you're doing more coding, but it also can be useful for the way that you and your company operate, is a special mode called Caveman Mode. And this is a special skill that a lot of software programmers and developers are using. But basically what this does is remove grammar and words where not necessary. And if you're if you're aware of this, what a lot of times if you're using LLMs, it's going to create tons and tons of just stuff, tons and tons of words. And it just writes way too much. You don't need it. In some cases, you might just need it to talk to you like a caveman. And I'll give you an example here, right? You know, and by the way, I'll put a link below to all the GitHub skills. So if you want to run Caveman Mode, kind of test it out, you can do that. That's a good way of saving on tokens. But here's a way that you might get a response back in normal mode, which is something like this. Claude come back and say, I reviewed the code and found that the bug occurs when the user object is undefined. Caveman Mode would say, user undefined, arrow crash. Right? So what you're doing is you're removing all the bloat, all the gloat, all the unnecessary words just to get down to the facts. And I remember reading an article about a year ago where Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, kept saying, stop saying please to your LLMs. It's costing us millions of dollars every month just because people are typing please. Stop typing please. And this is kind of an example. Every word that gets typed by you or by the AI is costing some amount of tokens, in some case more or less relevant, but just keep that in mind when you think about Caveman Mode. Guys, I hope you liked today's video. I hope this kind of highlights some of the insanity that's happening in the AI LLM world. Type your comments below. Do you have a tip that I missed? Is there something that we could do as a community to save money on tokens? We know that AI is the future. We know that it's going to be crucial to our ability to stay relevant, respected, and financially free, but what can we do? Give me your tips. I gave you 6. Give me some more. If it's great, I will pin your comments so everybody can benefit from it. All right, boys, I'll see you in the next video. If you enjoyed the video, check out yesterday's video. We talk about the exact structure that's happening over at Meta and what that means, what that indicates for regular guys like you and me when it comes to being hireable and being able to find clients. All right, check it out. I'll see you there. Peace.